So we have with us now this awesome panel, Kniss, I hope I said your name right, Amanda Lopez, Amanda Gribble, and Maggie Glos. This is going to be super fun. Different schools represented, professional development represented. Let's go. You guys are all on. I'm just going to make sure I can hear you all. Amanda, you're muted. Who's going to take the screen from me?
I am.
Okay. All right. So you go ahead and take it. I'm going to stop sharing. And then I'm going to turn my video off, and anybody not speaking should have their video off. So it's all about you guys. And then let us know when you want us to ask questions or involve other people.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. All right. Good to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Maggie, do you want to go ahead and get us started?
Sure. So our presentation is called Connecting Through Content and Contact, Tools for Strategically Building Engagement. And my name is Maggie Glos. This is my 10th year teaching and my 9th year with Albany County School District 1. I have taught 4th grade, kindergarten, and the last 4 years have taught kindergarten 1st and 2nd in a rural school. And now I am the CBVI, or Classroom-Based Virtual Instruction Teacher, for kindergarten 1st and 2nd at an elementary school. So this is my first year as a virtual teacher.
And I'm Amanda Gribble. I've been in education for 19 years in various roles. I've been a para in special education, and back when it was Chapter 1 instead of Title 1. I've taught kindergarten and 1st grade, and the last 5 years I've been the interventionist at my school. But this year I got to jump into the virtual world and try being the K through 2nd virtual teacher for my school. So I'm excited to be here. Welcome, everybody.
And my name's Amanda Lopez. This is my 10th year with Albany County School District 1. And I started off in the district as a paraprofessional in our behavior support program, and then moved into teaching 5th and 6th grade. I looped for several years with 5th and 6th graders. And then since then, I've been a 5th grade teacher. This year, I am the virtual 5th grade teacher for 4 elementary schools. So I have a small cohort at each of those 4 schools. So yes, that's us.
Okay, we can jump to that next slide, I think. All right, so just a little background of where our district is at as far as virtual instruction goes. We did not have a virtual program before COVID, and so this has all been, everybody's been kind of going through some growing pains and learning a lot of new things very rapidly this last year. So our program chose, the majority of the people doing virtual in our district were teachers already in some capacity. And so they were all asked to, with a few exceptions, to jump into the virtual teaching. And so it's been quite the learning curve, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So what we are hoping to share with you guys today, and hoping you guys take away from this, are a few tools we've learned along this journey and how they relate to our students. So we have found some tools out there. There's tons out there, thankfully, it's wonderful, but some are geared more towards your content, whereas others connect more relationally with kids. And as we're all trying to find ways to motivate children and get them engaged and connected with their learning, you and I all know, we all know, relationship is key. So we have a continuum here, and we're going to show you these tools and then show you where they land, in our opinion, on the continuum. Some lean more towards content and some more towards relational, and you kind of have to mix and match as you go through this to find the right thing for you. One thing that will be important to know as background information is we are almost entirely asynchronous with our students, with a few moments in the day as far as exceptions, but the primary mode of relaying content is asynchronously. So we had to look for some tools that could still connect our students to us as people and to their peer groups as fellow learners. So let's go ahead and hop to our first thing. The first tool we're going to share with you guys today, and maybe you guys have heard it already during the conference, is Nearpod. Nearpod is an interactive slide tool. There's a lot of wonderful benefits to it. One thing I noticed right away, it comes with its own library of lessons and activities. And so you kind of can get your feet wet a little bit by trying out something they've already made for you. And then there's a bunch of different ways to format the slides. You can stay in Nearpod, and they have a lot of different tools to making a variety of slides or questions that go with your slides. There's a few examples on the slideshow there. Kids can draw right on the screen, which I would do some things with the younger kids to make that more accessible, like a tablet or an external mouse or something like that. But it has proven quite handy in converting some worksheet type things or different activities into something a little more interactive. But there's tons of polls and quizzes and ways to do matching games and just lots of different activities that the kids can utilize to reach that content. Let's see, another really handy thing I find is that it connects with Google Slides. So you can work either in Google Slides and use Nearpod as an add-on feature, or you can build an entire slideshow in Slides and then embed it into Nearpod so that you can work a couple different ways, whatever you're more comfortable with, to access these interactive tools that Nearpod offers. Another nice thing I've noticed is once you build a lesson, if you're talking about it with some of your colleagues, you can share that with them in a really quick and easy way. They've made it very accessible to share with your colleagues and also embed it into whatever learning management system you might be using. They seem to have put a lot of effort into making it, to communicating with those different learning management systems so you can access that. One thing that I really like about it on the relationship side is that a couple things. For my students being so young, there's the ability to have them record audio, and they do that by simply clicking a button. Their adults that are home with them can kind of help them navigate through that, but then they can record their voice, either sharing their idea or answering a question, and the burden of having to type is gone. It's delightful. I find it really nice on those days when you're feeling so behind in life and you get to hear this sweet little kid voice, and it's just a nice feature in a lot of ways. Another feature that I really like for the relationship side, and this works better, the older the kids get, the better this is, I feel like, but it's a collaboration board, which allows your kids to kind of type into a Post-it note type thing and respond to a question or prompt. And then what they wrote can be seen by others. It can be liked. And then others can put another Post-it in there and respond back. So it kind of creates a bit of community in our very asynchronous world. So it's a very nice feature that way. So let's see where this lands on our continuum. So we've placed Nearpod a little bit more towards the content side just because it has that library of lessons, and it really is trying to convey some sort of knowledge or content that you're trying to get to the kids. But it does have some relationship pieces that are really easy for kids to access and interact a bit with each other. So the next thing we wanted to share, maybe hopefully some of you are familiar with Flipgrid. Flipgrid's an interactive video website. So I've used this a lot with my kids, where I'll record a little quick video and send it off, giving them some verbal directions or an example or model of what I'm hoping to see from them. And then they get to be free to produce a video of their own where they're sharing their ideas and their thinking and the awesome things they're building and creating. And then kids can go back and they can see each other's videos. I saw this used even last spring with my preschoolers class, where the preschoolers were listening to a story from their preschool teacher and then responding back to it and I can't tell you how many times he watched those videos of his friends that he hadn't seen in weeks. But it really does connect with the kids, and especially the generation we have now where video is, they're very comfortable communicating that way. And I think the younger kids, maybe even more so than the older, just love to see themselves on the screen. But I've used this to rehearse writing paragraphs and essays so they can kind of talk through the steps they're going to write about. I've used it for story retells to check on comprehension. I've had kids create math story problems where they tell a word problem that goes with their equation. There's just lots of different options there. And it just gives you another avenue to see and hear your students as they're working in a comfortable setting. Let's see where this one lands. So a little bit higher on the relationship side and less on the content, because it doesn't, as far as I have used it, I haven't seen a lot of pre-embedded content that you can borrow. You are creating some things, but it is a safe, friendly video interactive option. So I really do like it for that. And depending on your learning management system, it might be something you can embed there, or it wasn't too hard to grab and embed code from there to put it into a lesson that way too. So those are a few tools. I think Amanda's gonna move us into another option that suits the older kids maybe a little bit better.
Yes, so with my fifth graders, I use Nearpod and Flipgrid a lot. But another tool that I've brought in for my fifth graders is Parlay. And so in our ELA curriculum, we often will have a Socratic seminar before we go into a big writing project, so that kids have the opportunity to bounce ideas off of one another and to just hear the thinking of their peers. In our more asynchronous content delivery mode, that's not something I get to do as much. And with kids in 4 different schools, it's hard because they're all in different courses. It's hard to, through our learning management system, have them interact. So Parlay has been a way that I've been able to do that. So what I do is I set up their Socratic seminar, and it's the same questions that I would have asked in the classroom. And I give them those prompts, and then they're able to respond to those prompts in Parlay, and then they can give one another feedback. So I set up some criteria for their feedback, asking them to respond so many times, asking them questions about has their thinking changed, and if so, in what ways. And so doing a lot of the things I would do in an in-person Socratic seminar in an asynchronous way. Now, Parlay does have the option that you could do this in a synchronous form, either online, or I've also seen a video of children doing it in the classroom at their desks, and having just another way for them to maybe do some work ahead of a seminar or a discussion, so that they've got that thinking done. And then when they actually get together to talk about it with their peers, they've already done some of that pre-work. It's really nice because it's student paced, and there are lots of opportunities for collaborative problem solving. They do have a discussion topic library and some different ideas that you can try out if you want to just get your feet wet trying out Parlay. And again, it's just a really nice tool for peer feedback. My kids have really enjoyed being able to interact with one another. And one fun thing about it, because as Amanda was saying, you know, the younger ones, I think they're a little less self-conscious about being on the video. At 5th grade, some of mine are starting to get a little self-conscious about that. And they're also self-conscious about putting their ideas out there. So just a neat feature is that the students have aliases, and it might be that they are all Greek philosophers for one discussion, and then the next time they might be 18th century poets. And so they have anonymous aliases that I'm able to see who they are, but they don't know which of their peers they're responding to. And it just, I think, makes a lot of them feel a bit more comfortable, and take some of that stress and anxiety out of, like, what are my peers thinking about me as I write this? And so I think that just makes them more comfortable. It's very easy to set up, and there's lots of templates and how-to videos. And as I was saying, it has that capability of being done in a synchronous, asynchronous, or a hybrid model. So yeah. And on our continuum, we went ahead and placed it about the same place as Flipgrid. So they're not seeing one another, so that aspect of the relationship building part is taken away, but they are able to interact. And my students will often go back into Parlay a couple times that day to see what other people have added in, as you know, because one kid gets on and does their work at 6:30 in the morning and another kid does their work at 7 p.m. at night. It's there and they can go back and see what others have said, and then helps them to get ready for those writing projects the next couple of days. Our next tool is Google Forms. And this is something that myself and others have used quite a bit. So for content, I've used it for things like language arts question sets, just trying to just like, you know, in a quiz sort of format, gather some information. It's nice because you can have it in the form and look at their responses, or you can also use it to look at their responses in an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet, I guess, not an Excel spreadsheet, but in a Google Sheet. And so that's a nice way to just be able to quickly take a glance and see, how did the class do? Are we kind of on the right track? So it's just a quick way to check in. It's also a really nice way to gather information just about things like, for example, state testing. If I needed to have kids sign up to come in on a certain day, it's a nice way to send out a form to all of the people in my cohort and get that information back in a quick and easy way to use. I use it for a weekly check-in, and my students, several of us used a similar version of this. So asking them how they're feeling about school or just in general, also about, you know, how they're feeling about that week's work. Were they able to get most of their work done? I sometimes will throw in, you know, like, what's your favorite book, or what's something you're looking forward to this weekend? Just different questions that would be the same types of things I would ask them at a class meeting. But for those that aren't able to come to class meetings, this gives them another way to engage and interact with me. We use it a lot for parent feedback and surveys of both parents and students. And then some teachers in our district have used it as a way to check in on attendance as well. So with Google Forms, this ends up, we mostly use it more in a relationship way. Google Forms was something I used a bit more for content when I started in this position because it was something I was familiar with. But as I've learned these other tools, I've gone away from using Google Forms as much for the content and rely on it far more for relationship and interaction with students and their parents. All right, I'll pass it off to Maggie.
Perfect. So another tool that we have used this year is Padlet. And Padlet functions as a virtual discussion board where students can type their questions or their ideas on Post-its, and then all students can see each other's thoughts and ideas and respond. And so we as teachers know how important discussion is for students to learn from their peers and connect with their peers. And that's a little more challenging to have that discussion in an asynchronous virtual learning environment. And so Padlet can help to provide a way to have those discussions virtually. So I currently use Padlet for science. So I have my students adding their questions throughout our science units to a grade level Padlet. But you can use Padlet for all content areas. It's very easy to embed into a learning management system, and it changes as the students add to it, which is really nice for us as teachers because we can put it into an assignment, and then instead of having to go back and change it each time students add, it just automatically updates as they add to it. So Amanda, I don't know if you can click on the Padlet example, if it will open up what it looks like, but this will show you just what a basic Padlet looks like, just a practice one that I created. So when you create a Padlet, you can personalize it, you can change the color and the background and the font and all of that. And then students can access the Padlet and add their thoughts and ideas as Post-its, which you can see in this example. So they can type their questions or thoughts and add their name at the top. I also give my students the option of remaining anonymous if they don't want their name with their thoughts or questions. And then within the Post-its, students can also use buttons to add content. So they can add audio and video and links to their Post-its. And then one of the features that I most appreciate as a teacher is that you as the teacher can control the comments and can control how students interact with each other. So you have the option as the teacher to decide if the students can like each other's comments or star them or vote on each other's posts. And you can also enable or disable comments. So it gives you a lot of options for how students can respond to each other on the discussion board, which is really helpful. So that's the example there, and we can go back to the slideshow. Perfect. And then also as a teacher, you can move and group and regroup the comments and questions. So during Zoom meetings, when I meet with each of my grade level groups, I will often pull up the Padlet from science and we'll go through the questions together, and then I can move or regroup them as the students give me feedback. So again, just another way that it can help build that virtual discussion format for the students. So let's click to the continuum and see where it lands. So you can see that Padlet is further to the left, more toward the relationship side of the continuum. Similar to Flipgrid, it's not necessarily a tool that comes with built-in content, but that you can use with any content. So it's really a tool for communication and serves as a virtual substitute for class discussion. And then let's click to the next one. Perfect. So the next tool that we have found useful is digital math manipulatives. And of course, obviously, these are specifically for math, and we have found them to be very helpful, kindergarten through 5th grade. Two of the ones that we have used the most are the Didax math manipulatives, which you can see in the picture on the right of the slide. It shows you some of the tools that are available. So things like base 10 blocks and Unifix cubes and counters, all sorts of things that students can access virtually and for free anytime. And then the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics also has some games and resources that are available for free, and then others that you do have to have a membership to use. So we have found in terms of content engagement that these math manipulatives give all students access to materials. These materials are always available. They're always accessible for students. And as we said, since we are teaching almost entirely asynchronously, students having the ability to access the same materials anytime that they need them is incredibly important for our math lessons. And it also gives all students the same learning foundation. They're all starting with the same materials. All their materials look the same and work in the same way. So it helps to develop that common language. Since we are asynchronous learning, it means that we are not all doing the same lesson at the same time, where a teacher can step in and answer questions or help students if they're not sure. So having those manipulatives available just makes it a little bit easier on the students and their families as they're working through the math content. So if we click to the next slide, you'll see that the math manipulatives fall much more toward the content side of the continuum, which of course makes sense. They are more about the content and about math learning than necessarily relationships, but they do again help all students to access the learning in an equitable way.
So many things to click. Okay. So talking to families. This is, of course, one of the most important parts of our job this year when we are working as virtual teachers, because in the regular world, we would have had our students there with us every single day. And, you know, if they weren't understanding something, we would be there in a flash to be able to help them with that. But now we have to rely on students advocating for themselves and families advocating for their students, what they need academically, what they need socially, if there are things for their welfare that they need. We have to have ways to communicate with them. And so there are many tools available for this. Some of the ones that we've used are Zoom and Outlook, Google Voice, Remind, Class Dojo, and then I think some do use Microsoft Teams. And so for me, I've used Zoom all the time. I use it for office hours. So I have daily office hours where my students know that they've got a set time that they can come in and get help with any of their content. Or if they just, sometimes they just pop in and say, hey, Miss Lopez, I just wanted to let you know that I really enjoyed the book that you suggested to me last week. I just finished it and I've requested the next book in the series from the library and I can't wait for it. So I had a kid pop in on Monday to tell me that. And, as Amanda was saying, those moments when we hear their voices and they tell us those exciting things, it makes my day as a teacher. So it's wonderful to have those opportunities to see them and hear them and talk with them. We also use it to have things like weekly science meetings or content meetings. So maybe we need to get together and discuss our novel or other content. And so Zoom gives us a nice way to do that. We frequently send out newsletters or updates about we're going to have middle school registration next week. And so I will be sending out things to all my families to let them know when those things are happening. So we often put those things in our learning management system, but it's nice to have other ways to communicate with them about these things because what works for one family doesn't work for another family. So some families like to see me at office hours on Zoom. Others prefer to send me emails. Others prefer to send me text messages on Google Voice. So it's nice to have a variety of ways for them to get in touch with me. Of course, I sometimes am also communicating with them for missing work. And so those are all just content things that we need to do. But the relationship engagement, as I was saying, it's nice to hear their voices. It's nice to see them. So we use them for class meetings, weekly story time. So I read a picture book to my class every single day. It's just it's something that I would have done in person in my class meeting. And so it's just a nice way to connect with kids and have some, shared literature that we can come back to as we talk about different topics. And then I know some of the younger grades also use it for show and tell as well. So there are lots of tools out there. One of the best pieces of advice I got when I told my master's advisor that I was going to be a virtual teacher this year was she said, okay, just choose one thing for content, choose one thing for, communicating with families, get that figured out. Then you can branch out to another tool. So it's important to not try to do all the things, to find a couple things, do those well, and then add some more tools to your toolbox. And so on the continuum, these things definitely fall more on the relationship because when we're engaging with them on content, it's more about that relationship and having that shared experience. And so, it falls more on the relationship side. So I will pass it on to Maggie.
Okay, so as we wrap up, and as Amanda said, it's as you can see from this presentation, there are a variety of tools that you can use for virtual teaching and learning. And as we've discovered this year, being first-year virtual teachers, it's easy to be overwhelmed with the amount of tools that you can use to help your students learn. And so we hope that this continuum gives you one possible framework that you can use as you evaluate resources, and you can look at these resources through the lens of content engagement and relationship engagement. So thinking about balancing relationship building with the content creation that you're also doing. And we've also discovered that content tools can be easier to find, but that finding tools that engage the students and families in both the content and the student-teacher relationships is vital for helping the students to learn virtually and then also engage in school without being in the classroom. And so having that framework to evaluate the tools helps to limit your choices and helps to prevent overwhelm. Overwhelm for you and overwhelm also for the students and the families. We've found that having that select group of resources that you use consistently helps to create clear content and helps to build the classroom community and make things more consistent for you and for the students and the families. So we hope this has been helpful. We hope that you can use this continuum and this framework as you evaluate the tools you currently use and the tools you're interested in using. And we hope that this helps you to balance the practical with the possible. And I know we are pretty close. We're right over time, but if anybody has any questions, we are more than happy to try to answer those.
Okay, going once, going twice. Seeing if there anybody pops in with a question. I'm excited about everything that you guys just shared. And my only comment, and hopefully you guys can answer this really quickly so we can go on to our panel that's already just joined, is you're using a lot of tools that are communication centric and you're putting the content in. Are you using any tools that are the execution of the content itself, like adaptive digital courseware? Like Achieve 3000, Dreambox, who else? Accelerate Learning. They're modularized, sort of gamified delivery of the content, execution of the return, so that you're seeing a dashboard, how they're moving along.
We have a few things around the district that we different buildings use. It's kind of specific to the building in the district that meets that need, but primarily our main core content dissemination of information and retrieval of their products, it does not come that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well,
Everything's embedded in Canvas.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's cool. You guys are getting in there and making this happen. I'm excited for the work that you're doing, and thank you all for sharing. Amanda, other Amanda, and Maggie. Amanda 1, Amanda 2. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, then I'm going to ask my new panelists to get on and wrap up this hour with more states participating. Wyoming, it's been super nice to meet all of you guys. One day we're going to get out there and meet you in person when we have our next workshop out. You know, we want to come to Wyoming, so that would be great. All right, so I'm going to take back the screen.